I'm amazed to find out how old Aussie Rules is. Now let's take a look at a little mini documentary about Tom Wills, who is the founder of Aussie Rules. If you do enjoy, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's go. I love that they play in cricket grounds as well.
MCG Ray Weinberg interview, take one. Cameras A and B.
I think we've got any time to talk about TM Wills.
Tommy, I talk every two about Tommy Wills. Yeah. Thomas Wentworth Wills, and you ask most Australian football followers who Thomas Wentworth Wills was, and they have the faintest idea. He was a young boy that came down from New South Wales with his parents.
That amazes me that he says that most Australian football fans don't know who he is. Now, I've just finished a live stream on my first, watching my first Aussie Rules game. And, you know, people were mentioning me, watch about Tom Wills. So some people must know about him. But, yeah, I'm amazed that people wouldn't know about him if But I think this is just coming from someone that's into, you know, from the Northern Hemisphere, and doesn't realise. I don't know. Let's listen.
They took land in northwestern Victoria. His father's name was Horatio Wills. In fact, his father named Mount Ararat. And in the days when he lived up there as a boy, there were a lot of Aboriginal tribes in the area. And Tom spent a lot of time playing with the Aboriginal children. And he spoke all the dialects of the tribes, so he was gifted. And there is unconfirmed stories that they played a game with a stuffed possum skin, which was a bit like keepings off. Now, I've spoken to our museum people here and our library people here, and that's sort of unconfirmed, but it's a nice story in any case.
Is that a little bit like the start of rugby? How Ed Wallace picked up the ball. It's not confirmed, but it's a nice story.
So Tom played that, and when he was about 12 or 13, his father decided that home education had to be bolstered. They sent him away to school. And you immediately think, oh, Melbourne or Sydney. He put him on a ship and took him to England, to the rugby school in England.
And we know what happened
there. He stayed there
there.
for the rest of his school life and became captain of rugby and captain of cricket. And he was an outstanding cricketer. And at the conclusion of his school days, it was suggested that he should stay and play. A lot of the counties wanted him to play cricket because he was good. He wanted to come home. And he got home in time to find that his father had taken a very big selection of land in Queensland.
I wonder why they sent him to England, all the way from Australia, just for school. If anyone can tell me that, why does anyone know why they sent him all the way to England to school?
Up around, I can never think of the place now, Springshaw. And that he, Tom and his dad and 19 other people, his mother was remaining behind here, were heading to Queensland to set up a big sheep and cattle station. They went up to Rockhampton. And you've got to think of the times, this is mid-1800s. They picked 1,000 head of sheep, plus cattle, and took them 8 months to drive the stock out to the station site, because there were no roads or anything. And I think that in itself was a bit of an epic. And
that could be a story in itself.
Cattle yards, and they were living under canvas. And Tom and a young shepherd went back down the track to pick up from a dump supplies of tea and rice and wheat and that they were running short of. Away for 2 days, they got back to the homestead site, and every man, woman and child had been slaughtered by the Aborigines on the station, including...
Well, that took a nasty turn, didn't it? Christ.
His father. The only reason Tom and the shepherd survived is they weren't there. He farmed on for another couple of years up there, came back to Melbourne, became secretary of the Melbourne Cricket Club. His name's on the honour board out there, and he was captain of Victoria, the cricket matches between Victoria and Tasmania in the New South Wales and Tasmania in the main. And then he decided there had to be a game that cricketers could play in the winter to keep fit, and made the declaration, we must have a game of our own, and was largely responsible for the establishment and the beginning of Australian rules football. And in fact, in our museum, the original handwritten rules of the game are down there and recorded. And so he was the man who umpired that first game between the two schools. But the other remarkable thing about Wills is that in 1866, the first Aboriginal team, in fact the first team that ever went from Australia to play cricket in England, was an all-Aboriginal team. And the coach of that team was Tom Wills. So never ever harboured any bad feelings towards the Aboriginal people. And sadly over the following years he fell out of favour and became an alcoholic and ultimately committed suicide when he was still only a young man.
Amazing story.
It's an amazing story. I mean,
crazy story.
Over.
So, it just seems that is a crazy story, and the fact that he's gone from being friends with Aboriginal children, being sent away to England, play cricket, rugby, and I assume that's where some of the influence obviously come from, the shape of the ball and things like that. Coming back, parents and him moving 8 months, all for his parents to be basically slaughtered by Aboriginal people, then to move away, create this game, and actually for the Aboriginal team to be the first to play. It's a shame that they're saying his life ended with drink and suicide. That's crazy how life can go.
And hopefully one day someone will make a documentary about it. A couple of books, but there's 2 or 3 books being written about him. Yeah. He's a great character.
Well, thanks, Ray.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Pleasure.
No, 1858 is the first recorded game of Aussie Rules. I tell you what, they're saying about making it into a documentary, that this is a brief look at, a real summary of Tom Wills' life. Like I said, as a child playing with Aboriginal children, moving to England, playing cricket, rugby at a good standard, and they wanted to move back to Australia, travelled with his parents 8 months, all for his parents to be slaughtered, moving back down, starting. And there's a couple of things, for starters, this could be happily made into a film, not just a documentary, but a film, a feature film, because that could be an awesome story, a really awesome story. But what I also find fascinating, just focusing on the sport, is how quickly he managed to get the sport up and running and organised. If you think of the history of football, as in soccer, it wasn't a quick process. It was all the schools playing a different version, and it ended up having to have a governing body created to create the correct, to make rules that every school could play by, so it was a long process. But this seems to have been a really quick process of him creating the game and actually lots of people playing it. That's awesome in itself. That's crazy to think of. How, you know, it's like me, for example, just creating a new sport and all of a sudden everyone's playing it. That it might not be to that extent, but what an awesome story. What an awesome story. And I had no idea that Aussie Rules was this old. 1858, the first recorded game of Aussie Rules. That is such a long time ago, and who would have thought? Who would have realised that Aussie Rules, that is yes, there's teams around the world, but it is mainly an Aussie sport. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Thanks to the guys that recommended this story of Tom Wills. I hope you enjoyed, guys. If you did, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Tells YouTube that I've done a good job and you enjoyed the video. But yeah, have a nice weekend, and I'll catch you next time.